I'm truly grateful to the Indian Union Muslim League, the Muslim Youth League, and the Muslim Students Federation for inviting me here. I apologize in advance that my name is Aditya Menon, but I can't speak Malayalam. I was in North India for too long. I lost my language identity. But by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I gained a religious identity and became a converted Muslim. So the name is deceptive in both ways. I'm especially humbled to be here on the 42nd anniversary of the Bhasha Samaram. We owe a huge debt to the three MSF activists who were martyred while fighting for our constitutional rights. They were martyrs against the tyrannical rule of the then LDF government, but they were generally martyrs against tyranny at any time, at any place. They were martyrs on the path of truth, on the path of justice, and against oppression. Please accept my humble tributes to them. The legacy of the Bhasha Samaram is particularly relevant today. The Muslim League leadership at that time rightly understood that this was not a struggle for the jobs of Arabic teachers. It was a struggle for constitutional rights of every community. They were right to tell the teachers at that time to go back to work and that the community will now take forward their struggle. So what the state government did at that time by clamping down and using violence against a constitutional protest is now being done at a national scale by the current regime sitting in Delhi, or plainly through criminal intimidation by goons on ground or by trolls online. I was hearing a minister in Karnataka saying recently that we will not hesitate to use the Uttar Pradesh model against people who are opposing us. What does he mean by Uttar Pradesh model? It basically means the use of encounters and bulldozers and in complete negation of the rule of law. It is a model in which people, particularly those belonging to minority communities and Dalits, are punished even before being held guilty in a court of law. It is strange that a state like Karnataka, which once used to boast of being a development model, now wants to follow the Uttar Pradesh model in these matters. What is even more worrying is that the courts and the media are not doing enough to safeguard the constitutional rights of the people. Several critical cases, be it the challenge to the Citizenship Amendment Act, the validity of the abrogation of Article 370, are still pending before India's apex court. Lower courts have made the denial of bail, especially to activists and journalists, a norm. Even in the recent case of Mohammed Zubair, his lawyers had to go to Supreme Court to get bail because lower courts continue to deny him that basic right. The recent Supreme Court verdict on the Prevention of Money Laundering Act may create space for more harassment and use of draconian powers by the Enforcement Directorate. And this is likely to emerge as the new challenge to opposition parties and activists. About the media, the fraternity I belong to, the less said the better. The media has become an active agent for spreading Islamophobia and communal hatred. If you do even a basic survey of prime time discussions on Hindi and English media, you will find that the entire focus is on somehow showing Muslims as threats or troublemakers. It is always hijab row, namaz row, azan row, madrasa row, prophet row. They did not even spare Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam from their dirty agenda. During CAA, the attack was on Muslim political mobilization. But now the attack is on basic Muslim practices like prayer, hijab and azan. The space for opposition is continuously shrinking. We have current and former members of parliament here, they were witness to how the farm laws were passed without any discussion in parliament. We also see, like we saw in Maharashtra recently, how opposition leaders are pressurized to change sides, how they are hoarded and taken to Surat, Guwahati and where else just to bring down governments and put up governments of their own choosing. Even within the opposition, it has become particularly difficult for parties that want to talk about secularism and minority rights. We have a regime that is making a virtue of the fact that it doesn't have a single Muslim MP in both houses of parliament, that several of its governments have no Muslim minister, and that in states like Uttar Pradesh, out of 403 candidates, they could not put up even one single person belonging to the Muslim community. It is particularly difficult for parties like the Muslim League, which fight for minority rights and minority representation, to continue doing what they have been doing for decades. Even in Kerala, we saw in the last assembly election how not just the BJP but also the LDF tried to create Islamophobic hatred against the Muslim League by making all kinds of allegations. Despite this attempt to politically marginalize minorities, in the last 3 years, we saw two of the biggest protest movements in India's history. The protests against the Citizenship Amendment Act and the protests against the farm laws. Both protests were led by minority communities. During the CAA protest, Muslim mahallas and campuses became the heart of the protest, and thousands of Shaheen Bags came up in different corners of the country. Similarly, the farmers' movement was led by the Sikh farmers of Punjab, and a key role was played by Sikh community organizations, Gurdwara committees, and NGOs like Khalsa Aid. However, both these movements had to face a violent backlash. We saw what happened in Northeast Delhi, the riots of 2020, in which the anti-CAA protest was used as a pretext by Hindutva groups to attack Muslim localities. In the farmers' protest, we saw how Sikh farmers were mowed down, allegedly by a BJP minister's vehicle in Lakhimpur Kheri. That person continues to be in the BJP and in the cabinet. In this context, we must acknowledge that the Indian Union Muslim League faces the twin challenges of being an opposition party and also a party that is led by Muslims and speaks about secularism and minority rights. The Indian Union Muslim League is presently the biggest Muslim-led party anywhere in the country, having 3 MPs in the Lok Sabha and 15 MLAs in the Kerala Assembly. It would be in the true spirit of the Bhasha Samaram if the IUML assumes a more leading role in raising its voice about what is happening to Muslims across India. It is important to unite the community across sectarian and political divisions. That desire for unity is there in every section of the community because our lived experiences are the same. Be it Tabrez Ansari, who was lynched in Jharkhand, or Vice President Hamid Ansari. Be it Imtiaz Khan, who was killed by Gaurakshaks and his body was hanged, or Shah Rukh Khan and his son. Every Muslim in some way or the other is being targeted, irrespective of their background, irrespective of their privilege. Even in the anti-CAA protest, Muslims across political lines were arrested and put behind bars. Ishrat Jahan, she is a former councillor from the Congress. Umar Khalid is from a left ideology. Khalid Saifi is from a Jamaat-e-Islami background. Miran Haider is from Janata Dal, Rashtriya Janata Dal. Athar Khan and Tahir Hussain are both from Aam Aadmi Party. Sharjeel Imam, he is an independent Muslim thinker. But irrespective of their ideological differences, all of them were put in jail under the UAPA. So the state is not discriminating in that sense based on ideology. In the eyes of the state, every Muslim is the same and they are being persecuted in a uniform manner. Therefore, it is incumbent upon us also to unite. And I would hope and I would urge the Indian Union Muslim League to take a leading role in creating this unity, not just within Muslims, but also act as a bridge between Muslims and other communities and lead a united fight against tyrannical rule. I pray that the IUML, the MSF and the Muslim Youth League continue to grow in the way that was shown in the presentation, that you grow not just in Kerala but also nationally, and that you continue to play a lead role in this fight against tyrannical rule the same way you did during the Bhasha Samaram. I thank you very much for giving me the chance to speak here. Thank you. Jai Hind. Assalamu alaikum.